and I've got an awesome guest on the podcast today. So if you are a rum enthusiast or somebody who wants to learn more about rum, this is the podcast to listen to take your rum knowledge further. And we're going to go talking into what a Rummelier is. We're going to talk about the Royal Rum Society. We're going to talk about some music. We're going to talk about everything that is around our guest here. So let me welcome to the podcast, Greg Hill. How you doing, Greg?
Awesome. Doing fantastic. Thanks. As a fan of Drums and Rums, I'm excited to be on here. Excited to talk about drums and rums and bass. All right.
There you go. Do we switch that up maybe a little bit, right? Drums, rums, and bass. Well, you got it. With drums, you have to have the bass. No trouble. No trouble.
All about.
So you are. What are you enjoying at the moment, there, Greg? What do you got there? What you sipping on?
Right now, I'm enjoying some 1981 Belize, which is a fantastic, I believe. Eric K from Holmes Key. I think he puts some of that out, but it is the for those of you who had the Holmes Key Belize. This is aged in the sherry cask. It's one of my favorites. Like a lot of rums, you kind of go through this particular choice at the time. That's the one right now. So
very cool. So let me and I'll go through here, and I think this definitely calls for a special occasion here. So let me break into something here. This is a special occasion, and you're a special guest. So yes, all my guests are special.
All the guests are special, but this is like the special. Ooh, do we need some like da 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 music going there?
Yeah, where's my sound effects guy?
Sound effects. I'll be the sound effects. Like da da. There we go. So what are we having now?
Let's see. Let's go for. We'll give a big shout out here because, and again, I should get closer to the microphone. We'll give a big shout out here. So I'm going to bust out my
Wooten
FRS Miami Takeover glass, and I'm going to bust out my Hamilton Florida Rum Society bottle, and that is what I'm going to bust open there. So there's to everybody here. And again, oh look, you've got one too. Here, hold your glass out. I'm gonna pour you some there. Hold your glass out.
There we go. Pour a little.
All right.
Actually, as I remember correctly, we were kind of hanging out at the Florida Rum Society Takeover in Miami, and Miami will never be the same, right?
No, yeah, and some things that happen there, let's just leave it as it. What happened in Miami stays in Miami, right?
Exactly. I say we had some serious rum fun though. That was it was fun, great folks, and some great rum knowledge was had by all. So.
Yep. And so here's cheers to you. All right.
Cheers.
So yeah, actually that's how we and it's a good segue is actually how we ultimately met was through the Florida Rum Society, and I guess we'll talk a little bit about that too. Is here a lot of the 2020, 2021, there was a lot of the Zoom happy hours and meetings and so forth. And that's how I learned about you through the Florida Rum Society first met you actually at the Miami Rum Renaissance Festival, November of last year. And then meeting up in this past February. So
that was when we were headed on our way to Barbados. We were doing our Rummelier Roundtable, which is an annual event where we get our Rummeliers from all around the world, all around the globe. Actually, cool thing, Paul, we've had 28 countries now represent folks that have gone through our Rummelier program. We have over 100 Rummeliers worldwide now, so it's pretty cool. Well, we were on our way to Barbados, where we call it our Rummelier Roundtable, where we did some fantastic distillery tours and drank some amazing rums and had some amazing times. So we're repeating it again this year. So anybody wants to come, October I think 4th through the 9th. I could be a little off on those dates. But check Royal Rum Society. We're May the 1st, I believe the tickets are going to go on sale for that. But it is the behind-the-scene distillery tours that you do not get normally. So, and you get to hang out with lots of 40 other of rum enthusiast folks that are probably just as crazy as everybody on here. So
I know I was I've seen all the videos that were being or pictures being posted, and I said, Man, I'm so jealous right now. And it's like, how to get it. Now, I know I'm fairly newer to some of the community here, and definitely pandemic put a damper on kind of getting started into it. I mean, like for a lot of folks, but definitely that was my first festival there back in November, and was really looking forward to some of the other ones. But yeah, no, we'll talk a little bit more in a little bit about the that trip and that's coming up this year, and to kind of let folks know how they can really enjoy Barbados in October, right? So if you're living up in the north, and I know you're up in the Virginia area, and you're probably fed up of the crazy spring that you're having, right? Because the weather can't make up its mind, right? If you're winter or summer yet, right?
By the way, word to the wise, rum actually is very good for clearing out pollen.
Oh,
actually, I don't know, just kind of made that up, but it seemed pretty plausible.
You know what? I mean, hey, look. Nowadays, people can say whatever they want, and hey, look, it's on the internet, right? So that's just it. It's on I heard it on this podcast, right? Didn't I get another podcast? Didn't I get another podcast guy a little in trouble saying stuff, and that was half. We won't drop it.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Rum is the pollen.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go, Dr. Greg, Dr. Rum. That's that. There you go. There's your new name. We need to work on that. That's your new alias now.
Actually, that's what. So we've got Master Rummelier Levels. So now I guess Doctorate of Rummelier. We just came up with something.
Oh,
there we go.
Maybe
level Doctorate. Rummelier.
Greg, do you know how many people would? You need to have to work on that program, because you know how many people would want to have that title.
There you go. There we go. You saw it happen right here. And actually, that's the way Rummelier happened. Believe it or not, Rummelier happened us sitting around here at my home bar. We started our society loosely about 12, 13 years ago, somewhere around in there. Just folks, we actually met through our kids, and we decided we all like to drink. And next thing you know, hey, I like rum. You like rum? I like rum. Hey, I just went to the Caribbean, and I went to this cool distillery tour, and I brought back rum. And hey, you want to have it? Yeah, let's have it. And then the collection grows and the group grows, and we started dubbing ourselves the Richmond Rum Society in Richmond, Virginia. And one night, after a few rums, somebody said, we're like rum sommeliers. We'd really become adept at figuring out, hey, Juan likes this one rum, and Will likes this one. Hey, man, you'd really like this one. Like, oh my gosh, we're like rum sommeliers in a sense. So that was the birth of Rummelier. So
it always, as our opening tune there from our good friend and fellow podcaster local here in South Florida, Brad Brock, his tune is Once Upon a Bottle of Rum.
That is awesome.
It is.
That is truly awesome.
Yes.
That it's a lot of the best ideas come when you're sitting around enjoying company with friends, and interesting stories that kind of went from there. My background, other than being a musician, again, I've been a musician, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Is in training, adult education. I take boring subjects and make them interesting. And rum not being boring, to me, was a perfect fit to be able to take those talents of over 30 some years of adult education, building out training courses, and be able to take rum knowledge and be able to make it where it's, I say, not as, loosely say this, boringly academic. I think you know what I mean there, where it's actually fun to learn rum, I think, as adults. I think that's important that you retain more if you really truly enjoy what you're doing, but then it's presented in a way that you can feel comfortable with it. So,
I think that's kind of interesting, is that you took kind of very similarly. What I've done here is obviously the name of the podcast is you took two things that you're involved and you're interested in, had knowledge in, background, and took that education part of the training background you had into turn it into, hey, let's learn more about it, and that's pretty damn cool. So
it's been a fun journey too on the learning, and a lot of us, our group, all really got into learning it. And and to me, the best part about the whole rum world that I did not know exists until I got to say, John Atkins, some of you guys know him as Tiki John, here in Richmond. I started joining a few Facebook pages, put up the little Richmond Rum Society Facebook page, and Tiki John reached out and said, "Oh my God!" He's like, "We have a Rum Society in Richmond. I didn't know about it." I said, "Yeah, we're just kind of a loose group here." Come to find out, John is one of those guys that literally travels around the world, going to conferences. Has an amazing collection. We think somewhere around 12 to 1300 rums, somewhere in that category.
Wow!
And is always one of the most gracious persons in the world. I think when you say true rum ambassadors, when you say the term rum ambassador, I'd say Tiki John is one of those guys. And anyway, he was very instrumental in helping growing things. And he said, "Hey, you should start going to these conferences, like the London Rum Conference, the New York, all these Miami Rum Congress, all these. You should start going to those." And so that's where we started meeting a lot of folks. And come to find out, apparently no one had done what we'd done. Nobody had really designed a course based on the overarching rum spirit, all the way from how it's made, history, how to taste, some trivia in there. How do you communicate rum characteristics? How is this? Oh my gosh, zillion different categories. How do you put all that into one category? So again, if Tiki John's watching, Tiki John was very instrumental in all this.
So Tiki John's to blame, like that lost shaker of salt. But he brought you down the rabbit hole further, and then
yes, he did. And in fact, so he was with us in Miami, the Miami Takeover as well. So I think I wonder if he got all those rums that he purchased in Florida.
And now you guys flew back, right?
Yes, we flew back. Sometimes when we go to Florida, we'll drive. Richmond's kind of in one of that go zones where sometimes we can drive. I'll be down in Miami next week, actually, but we're flying. So
okay, yeah, I guess it's sometimes you trying to bring and check all that rum back in the airplane, and your check luggage is a little tougher than I guess your rum mules. I heard somebody reference because somebody else during that event was picking up bottles for somebody else to meet up. And so I don't know. We're all passing a little bit along, and I think that's the kind of the cool thing about that too is meeting like fellow folks that have this interest and passion, and enthusiasm about the. And again, it can go for anything, and I know that it can go for any spirit or any kind of hobby or whatever you want to be. But I think that's been pretty cool. Is a lot of folks here. I'm very fortunate to have a lot of living in Florida, right? And I know a lot of states have some limitations and restrictions on getting your hands on stuff or acquiring it, or even, and I know like I said, I've been comments like, man, you're really lucky to live in Florida because you have a lot more opportunity, obviously closer to the Caribbean. But where I'm going with that is a lot of local folks here that are part of the Florida Rum Society that will swap a couple things and say, hey, here's a little sample here. I'll give you a little bit of this. Oh, okay. You want to try this out? And then, so it's a great way to share some of our stuff without not necessarily getting an opportunity to hang out, maybe. But yeah, a couple folks like Johnny from Ready Set Rum, we'll trying to share. He's got, I'm nowhere near what I shared less probably because he's almost had a lot more than I have. And even like our a fellow recent certificate or grad there was Nia from my Rum Diaries, and Philip. Then we've shared a couple things as well, and she's actually helped him acquire some bottles on her travels too. So definitely, it's great to share this passion and fun with others too. So,
I got to say hello to Nia as well. For we got to meet up, and I was in Florida a few weeks ago, actually on our spring break with our kids, and just so happened we got to have a little pinning ceremony. And that also, when we do that, we have a few rums, and we got to share some rums. I brought a few down that. From Virginia, some to share with them. They brought some to share with me, and it's just and again, the Rum community I find just to be such a sharing community. Of hey, have you tried this? And then actually have those cool conversations about your impressions on it, and part of the Royal Rum Society, which is kind of the international organization that sponsors the Rummelier program. I think we have chapters now in 10 countries.
Oh, wow.
The cool part is that we're able to get stuff that probably somebody else hasn't, and then we get together, we're able to share it, but then also to have some great conversations about it. And really, and the important thing is in a judge-free environment, that you're not just because somebody may like one doesn't, sometimes there can be a little snobbery, especially in other, let's say, other spirits, to be able to say, hey, you like what you like, and us to be able to share how it was made, understand it. We know how it's made. So that's a really cool thing to me about the rum community.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely I know because I think I read a little bit that you had a little bit started prior to getting further into the rum, but you growing up in Virginia, obviously a lot more, obviously whiskey, bourbon, and a lot of that mid states and so forth. But that was that something that you were always prior, was whiskey, or I guess when did that rum journey start for you? Do you recall?
Actually, it's very interesting. I, being from bourbon country, actually having my great grandfather, or great great grandfather, was an infamous moonshiner, which I read stories about him and hear, the legends about it. Personally, I honestly was never a huge bourbon fan, nor a whiskey fan. I was, my rum journey of all things began on the road touring in a band, in all places, Montana. There you should have some like music going. What, Montana? And I'd love to tell this story.
Wait, what kind of rum is made in Montana? I'm sure you can tell us, right?
I have no idea. Okay, so this is how far back it goes, and it was not made in Montana. The rum, I'm pretty sure, but this was in the mid to late '80s. I was touring with a band in the Northwest, and just so happened one of the bar owners in this bar in Montana, after the shows, you tend to hang out with the bar owner and they want to share different drinks and stuff with you. And this guy was really into rums. And of course, at the time, we were kind of beer drinkers and whatever. And I remember trying these rums going, oh my God. And I still remember to this day, and again, this has been back decades, he's like, no, this is not a shot. And he showed us the drink neat. And that was the first little kind of thinking about it. But fast forward a couple of decades, and I was in the insurance business, and we win these trips, typically the trips to the Caribbean. And I'm not one of those guys that likes to lay out on the beach, but so much. So I like to do things. And so I started taking distillery tours, and of course, rum, just going back to remember, hey, how much I used to love that. That's what really got me into rum was doing those distillery tours around the Caribbean. That would probably been the early 90s, somewhere around that time. So actually, it's interesting. Eric K from Holmes Key Rum, we had that discussion of what was that moment, and his was very similar. Eric's a musician as well, which, by the way, I don't know if you've had Eric on here.
Not yet.
He's a musician. Okay. Wow, wait a second, I see a theme. Alcoholic beverage, musician. Is there a correlation?
I know. Yeah, we talk about it, right? Is because there is as I've talked to local musicians, talked with distillers here in Florida or wherever, and again having a music aspect to this. I know a lot of people can't figure out this podcast and what I'm doing and how does Drums and Rums, and even Robert Burr said, he goes, Drums and Rums. It's like, and I know people have heard me say this many times, but it's just funny. It's like milkshakes and hand grenades. They just don't go together. He goes, but it works, right? It's it's catchy and so forth. I'm like, well, it's two things that I liked, and I think there's a good symbiotic. Is you're right. You go to bars, and this is why the pandemic was so difficult, right? So you go to establishments to watch music, or you go out, right? You go watch music. Okay, there's music. You have an establishment. They're selling spirits and booze, whatever, right? And then there's this whole symbiotic relationship between all those things that. You take one away, the pandemic shut down restaurants, bars, etc. Where does the bands play? The bands had to go to Zoom and all that stuff, which was okay for like first few weeks watching local bands play in their house. And then you take away the ability to do spirits. So now the bars aren't selling, probably where they make most of their money is spirits. And then so it's that pandemic really threw that off. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's definitely a correlation there. So
yeah, it's and what's interesting too is as I've gotten to know a lot of the hospitality and through music, and I toured for years, and I really got to know the hospitality industry, know the bartenders as well. I mean, again, by the way, I just go ahead, full disclosure, when it comes to mixology, cocktails, that sort of thing, I understand the basics of it, and I truly think it's an art form. I love to watch how folks do it. Just as the producers, as they make this wonderful spirit that we're drinking, it to me, I love the combination of kind of art and science as they're making these. And it's interesting too, to kind of go on a little tangent. By the way, as you've probably seen, I like to do tangents here, but I got to thinking about this in music and how aligned music is with rum. There's great analogies here. You know, you hear, I'm asked a lot because I had a very nice career in music. I made good money at it, toured everywhere doing it. And somebody said, you know, if you could give advice to a young musician coming up, what would it be? And I always say this: learn a lot of different styles. Learn to appreciate the styles. You can have the styles that you like the best, but learn the nuances of the difference between, like, for example, if you're playing heavy metal, where the beat is, it's like almost like rushing it a little bit. If you're playing a funk tune, you're kind of laying back just a little bit. It's where it's at. It's, you know, it's all the same notes, but it's how that note is delivered. And the analogy to rum is this: you know, you have all these categories of music, right, styles of music, the same as with rum. And that's what's so cool about rum to me, is there's so many variations. And learning to appreciate all the different styles. Again, even though one may not be your particular favorite, it's kind of cool to go, I want to appreciate what makes this one what it is and why people like this particular one. So I think there's a lot of analogies in rum and music.
No, I think you nailed it there, talking about how if you're really truly into, and this goes to, and I was just thinking a few things are running through my mind as you're talking there, was first was, you know, like the Game of Thrones, you know, Tyrion says, he goes, I drink and I know things. And it's like, you know, that's, you should have a shirt that says I play bass and, you know, and I know rum, you know, and, you know, and that was first thing. But then talking about if you were really truly into this, we'll call it a, not craft in the sense of craft distilling or craft spirits, but, you know, learning more, and just like musicianship is really learning your instrument, is like I said, you can have a very long longevity if you have more knowledge of a wider palette, if you really truly want to be a musician and not really focus on one genre of music, right? Because then you have open to a whole wider palette, rather than, let's say, maybe rock or, like we said, metal, right? There's, you know, if you're really good at being a musician, and in our case, bass or drums, you can, like I said, not how many, and we'll get to talking about that. It's like how many bands from the '80s ran out of steam, and these musicians were mediocre, and then more of it was all show and, you know, not as skilled musicians. So.
Yeah, that's very, you know, what's cool is we're you know, we're thinking about this is, yeah, you do have, if you're not growing in music, it would become very stale and very boring. And that's why I love to see, you know, you mentioned heavy metal, you know, when I was doing heavy metal in the 80s, and yes, there are picture evidence of me with the
we're going to have to find some.
Yeah, oh, they're out there. Trust me. Just do a Facebook search; you'll see it. But you know, when in those days it was sort of started with, you know, it was kind of starting to turn into the glam metal, but the roots sort of came from, you know, your Ozzies and your the sort of those trendsetters, which had a particular style. They had, you know, you go back to the Black Sabbath on as they started moving, but now you look at how that category of music has expanded. When you say the word metal, what is metal?
Right.
There are so many subsets of it. And again, I love that. I don't like all of them personally. However, I appreciate them and what they're doing. And I love that they're not taking and They're staying true to the basic form. So when you hear something, you're like, oh my God, that's metal. But what style of metal is it?
Mm-hmm.
And again, you can get with most music genres. And what's kind of cool to rum to me, what excites me about rum is, okay, so let's take a rum agricole. Okay, we know where that's coming from. We know it's coming sugarcane juice. It's coming from, it has some specific guidelines to it. However, what is it? There's almost becomes little subsets of, because it comes to the flavor profile. So they're almost kind of branching out there. And again, that's that artistry and taking the artist and its artistry is this word, artistry, and the science of it. And you've got this conductor, I guess. Oh, I just came up with that conductor who's saying, "Hey, I'm gonna do this to it, and it's going to create this." We're still kind of staying to the basics. It came from sugar cane itself, but this is where it went. So, boy, we come up with lots of cool stuff when we're drinking rum.
Oh, and it's definitely an interesting thing, because that's and I've had a little bit of this backwards, and I don't say backwards in a negative way, epiphany, but just kind of you take a pause and you reflect and say, all right, there's so much today. Rum isn't what people would have thought of it 40, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, right? And again, there's different processes. I mean, who would have ever thought to age rum in beer barrels, or age rum in wine barrels, or do all these different things. But as you said, the foundation of it still exists, is it's made from, cane. But there's kind of different. Yeah, I think that's a really great explanation that you just gave there. It was very colorful and very descriptive, and how to kind of think about it in your mind. Or hopefully, the listeners kind of see the same thing, is that when it comes to, as you said, maybe metal's not your folk forte of music, but just kind of understand there is metal, but then there's so many vast difference of metal too. And, I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm in that same boat too, Greg, I think I'm more of I'm more on the rock and metal side to try to think, is there different styles, the same variations of jazz? I'm sure, I think there is, but I don't know if it's same to the metal. I mean, there's always a different version of metal coming out and so forth. And you see the new guys come out, and, back in the 80s, the thrash metal guys, and, was kind of fast, sloppy, loud, and then you come out with guys that are now playing metal. They're very technical, right? And they're very precise, and they're because they've learned and improved over that time. And that's kind of same way in making spirits and making rum, right?
Exactly. And you even look too at like, and there's so many genres you could apply it to. You could apply it to country. You could apply it in jazz. Yeah, there are so many. So full disclosure, I was a music major in college and a history minor, which you'd think, hey, you really study music history, which I did. But one of the cool things about let's take reggae, for example. Reggae actually was an offshoot of ska. Ska was basically a faster version of it, but it's very similar. But it's just, hey, then we're gonna kind of cut it down a half beat here. We're gonna kind of go down a little bit and give a little more of a groove. Again, a lot of the same. If you play, and I played in a ska reggae band, which I found very interesting. It was. But this is hey, we're talking Jamaica. We're talking rum, right?
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of the same notes. It truly is. However, it's done with a different feel. Again, same thing could be applied to rums. Boy, we really went down a rabbit hole on this one, didn't we?
Oh yeah. We gotta rein this back in, because I think we're covering everything that I wanted to talk to you about, but yet we're definitely in the roundabout. It's like going shopping when you're hungry, right? You're kind of all over the place here. So let's reel it back in here, and I think it's all definitely good information. We'll, I think, probably be touching upon some of these things as we go through. So we were talking about Rummelier, and I know we've kind of already discussed a little bit of it, but for those who have not heard of it, I want you to say, if somebody says, "What is Rummelier? What is it?"
Well, it's interesting. Again, it's about being able to understand rums, understand how they're made, understand the history of it, understand about rum. But then the big key is to be able to, and here's my fancy word for the day, elucidate, or be able to communicate to someone else who maybe has some I guess, misconceptions about rum, where they think it's just some sweet thing that you throw it in a pina colada, or it's, to be able to explain that to them. And that's what the whole Rummelier process is about. I actually have one of our little mini courses. It's called Lost in the Liquor Store. And we kind of joke about this. How many times, and some of the viewers may have had this happen to them, you go to the liquor store, your ABC store, that's called ABC stores here in Virginia. You go in there, and of course I go straight to the rum aisle, and there invariably will be somebody there who's looking through, and they go, I don't know what rums to pick. And then maybe the person working there may or may not really know a lot about rum, and you're sitting there biting your tongue going, I really want to help. So then you kind of let it go. What are you kind of looking for? Start having that conversation. And then, most of us that know our rums, usually most of those rums that are in that liquor store, we're probably familiar with. And so we can help people out. Same as when you go to a bar, something like that, to be able to say, hey, and hopefully be able to turn somebody on that had a misconception about rum, to turn them on to, hey, here, this is what it's all about. So that, in a nutshell, is the Rummelier program.
Okay. And that's something that your way you explain going into the liquor store and not smacking that person with so much rum knowledge that they're like walking out of the store dizzy and so forth. But that's so what's and there's different levels, as you mentioned, right? And I guess what is as you said, we were talking a little bit before there about there's a local person here in Florida who's a master Rummelier who just achieved that level. I guess so. Walk through, Greg, what is the different levels, and then what is, and I know due to COVID, it kind of did push a lot of this to remote learning. But what is the typical time to go, and you've seen since the beginning to now, roughly, that somebody can go from the start to making me, and maybe talk about how it's, I don't want to say it's like comparing it to, getting to Eagle Scout, like the Boy Scouts, but I mean, it's level based, and there's some things you go through, and there's some course, and then there's some testing that's involved, and kind of, I don't know. I think if you could kind of just cover some of that.
Sure, absolutely. And so we actually have our entry level is what we call Rum Sommelier, which is our Rum Summer. We've had, it's interesting. We always have a hard time figuring out how to pronounce it, but Rum Sommelier is a very introduction to rum. We do some dinner events. That's not even, it's no certificates, just almost like it just kind of learn the basics about rum. In fact, the Barbados government, we did what's called the National Transformation Initiative, NTI program. It's called their STAR program. We actually virtually did a lot of these Rum Sommelier courses for folks over in Barbados. I think it was a couple hundred people went through it in the hospitality industry over there, which was really cool. The next level up is called a Rummatas, which starts increasing the knowledge level. The Rummatas level is the first level you can do online. Most folks, though, tend to opt for the Rummelier, which actually the Rummelier, it is a professional designation. It is a registered trademark. We went through the whole process of getting the government to approve it, which they do put you through a lot of questions and answers and what exactly you're doing to certify folks. And fortunately, we passed all of those. It took over 2 years, again, to get there to do that. But the beginning courses can either be done live, which was the original intent. COVID threw a little bit of kink in that. So we put them out online. It's called an LMS system. So they can actually do it self-paced. If you work in the corporate environment, you're probably familiar with these. You go through video modules. There's some testing in there. So you go through the different modules that go through all the steps that you need to. Once you finish that, there is a tasting. We call it an action requirement. You got to taste rum, right? Yeah. That's the fun part. So you taste for the Rummelier certification. You got to taste and write on 25 different rums. Plus, you also have to then, as a true Rummelier, find some folks, asking them the right questions, to show how to ask the right questions to lead them to the correct rum. Once you've done that, we do a final session. It's a one-on-one, just like this. It's a virtual session where we go through the what they've learned, see if you feel pretty comfortable, if we feel comfortable, and then you receive your certification, which you get a cool little pin and you get a nice little certificate. There are some levels above that, levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. There are some advanced classes, and you probably heard of Matt Petrick, the cocktail wonk. I call him the encyclopedia of rum. Oh my gosh. Every time I talk to the guy, I'm like, wow, I just learned something from him. There are some very specific classes that you do, and they are one-on-one. In fact, it's a cool time. If you really want to carve out some time with somebody esteemed as Matt Petrick, then you go through those. Once you have gone through all of the advanced courses, gone through the tasting requirement, which has gone up to 150 rums, also some distillery visits in there, you do all of that, then you achieve Master Rummelier status. And there are very few people that have done that. I think we're about 7 or 8 at this point that have made it through that. So that's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So Greg, how long would it, if I signed up today, and I guess depending on what my pace is, and I mean, what would the average pace that somebody could take somebody to get to that master level if they were very committed into doing this?
To make it to the master level, again, it's you're running at your own pace. To make it through the Rummelier, let's say you're doing the online versions. I mean, it can literally the online versions be done in a couple of days. If you really just forge through it and you're really rocking through it, maybe even a few hours, which you're kind of shortchanging yourself a little bit. You should really digest the information, to really learn it. There are, I believe, 10 courses now for advanced courses. So those tend to run an hour or so a piece. So those you do have to schedule them with Matt. And so you're talking, I think actually Isabella, who's our first, female master Rummelier, she, made it through in about 3 to 4 months, somewhere around in there.
Oh, wow. Okay. And, what does something like that kind of get you started in the door to start the first step?
As far as how do you do it, it basically you go to rummelier.com, and right on there it shows you, it walks you right through it. It's actually kind of nice. People that are way smarter than me have made it to where you just click a button and then you're able to start going through the training courses. So
very, very cool. So definitely for those who are interested in kind of taking this a little bit further, check out the website there, and we'll make sure we recap when we wrap up here. I've looked at it. I've seen it. Probably I've seen the website early. I think actually before I actually met you and learned more about it, and found out, realized you're the one of the guys behind it, and with that, kind of interesting. But again, it's like you said, it is, you've got to have the time to get into it, and probably not, even though the self-pace, if you're, be careful of not letting it slide too much, but yet, like you said, don't kind of just blow through it either. Kind of take it so you have this knowledge that does stay with you, and, for going forward. So if I can find time to slow down this whole podcast train and all the other crazy stuff I'm doing here, I definitely will get, jumping into it. But so that's the reason why I haven't got in there. It's saying, why, Paul, why haven't you done this yet? Are you committed?
Hey, it's all about when you feel comfortable with anything. And that's like anything in life. As many times as I've run around this sun, I've learned that everything is there's a time for when you, again, enjoy it. And that's what I tell everybody. Look, and that's why I say, don't just blast it, enjoy it. Right. In fact, there's part of adult education is sometimes, instead of just saying, hey, here is the information, somehow memorize it. We actually send you out to use that thing known as the internet to go find some of the information, and we kind of show you how to find it, and then that way it sticks. Again, I'm learned as an educator. It's not about what I know up here and trying to do a data dump of information to show you how smart I am. It's not that. It's about how much of this crazy information that I've got up here that I can communicate it with you. So then it becomes locked in your brain. It goes in your file cabinet, and then you're able to share that. So that's kind of really the goal. It's not about how smart we are. It's about making you like with my kids, I say, I want you to be smarter than me. Not a heavy lift, but
So I think that, and that's what do they call it? Like in tech world, and you know, obviously you probably have heard the term is and you know, an evangelist, right? You know, somebody wants to be a technical evangelist or a rum evangelist or whatever case may be. And I'm sure folks that if they let you, I'm sure you will definitely fire hose them with knowledge that they weren't probably expecting to get for you, like that guy in the liquor store that you were probably, you know, ready to unload on. Let me tell you about rum. And so with that being said, for those, you know, if somebody's listening to this, and again, like I said, maybe a casual rum drinker, or, you know, kind of not have kind of step further, you know, or thinking about maybe taking a little step past the, you know, the big B company, or the, you know, the guy with the, you know, the sailor guy. I mean, why should somebody, I mean, I guess what would kind of push them into saying, hey, you know, if you're really serious to take a step out of your comfort zone to want to learn more? I mean, do you have a lot of folks that are really the enthusiast, or do you have somebody who's like on that edge of the pool there where they're not, you know, fully in, but, you know, they're kind of in? Does that make sense?
absolutely. In fact, I almost put it in. We have like three categories of folks, and I kind of put in the first category those enthusiasts. And it's interesting because you're absolutely right. We have some people that are kind of bordering on, hey, I'm really curious about rum. I kind of learn about it more. And it seems like the folks that kind of go in that, once they've gone through the program, they actually do become enthusiasts. And the cool part is, again, our community, we have a little thing called the Rummelier Roundtable each month, where we have folks from around the world that get on there. And it's really cool to see those folks that fall into that enthusiast category, that they start together. For example, and I got to share this. I saw one of the coolest pictures. We have a little WhatsApp thing that everybody kind of posts on the society. But anyway, we have Sven from Norway, who was going to Dominican Republic. So he meets Andre, our Rummelier in Dominican Republic. They're hanging out. I think they went to Barcelona, I think it was, and to see them taking pictures, that was really cool. So we have enthusiasts here. Then we do have quite a number of people in the hospitality industry, the bartenders, folks that are facing the public. And again, this is, if they become Rummelier certified, this can go on their resume. And I'm finding it's kind of funny because we'll have some folks that have gone through it, that they'll go to maybe a new bar or whatever and say, hey, yeah, I'm a certified Rummelier. And it's usually like, what is that? Does that exist? And yeah, look it up. And I've actually had some bars reach out to me and say, hey, I saw that program. That's pretty cool. Can you come in and talk and certify all of our people? That's one group of folks. But then another group of folks is producers. We've had quite a number of distillers, producers, folks in the industry that have gone through the program. Actually, some folks that I was kind of like, wow, I don't know what I can teach you. But they always say, no, we can always learn. And so that's it's really kind of run the gamut. That was a long answer for a short question, but anybody is welcome. But we will turn you into a rum enthusiast.
Yeah, and that's a great point about, you know, just, you know, there's some folks that just always seems like I've heard a story or people that come on, people started a rum business, and there's always a story about, well, here I was on the beaches of some Caribbean island, and I'm going to cash in my 401k and go start making rum, or whatever the case may be. And again, a lot of people dive into this, and I'm sure they all have a story, unless you're probably from somewhere in the islands that it goes back hundreds of years, or your family, or we were talking about Clarion, you know, the families that are making that a Haitian rum. But yeah, a lot of people kind of go into it very, very wide-eyed and, you know, and dreamy, and realize, shit, I didn't realize that there's so much to it. You know, it's because we all love drinking it, so we all think that this is something cool that they want to do for the rest of your lives and be around it, and then realize, you know, and I think that's a great point, is just because you're making the rum, you know, hey, you know how to make it, but like you said, there's so much knowledge to kind of grow out, that there's a bigger, broader reach to be more knowledgeable, and continuous education. And, you know, we talk a lot about the drummers that come on the podcast, that there's always a constant learning. You should always keep learning, and there's always so much out there. There's more people to learn from different things from. And everybody always has something to share and share of knowledge and so forth. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, so if you're thinking about it, and I probably definitely, you know, I'm an enthusiast. I do like drinking it. And I'm not on the edge, you know. I'm just on the edge of committing to myself to jump in there. So I'm in the pool, but you know, yeah, something like that.
Hey, love to have you on the in our group. And again, the coolest part of it all, and again, I'd mentioned this before, is the connections of folks. It's and that really, to me, sort of, it made me so happy in Barbados. Again, it was cool to be touring, you know, the dream locations, and you know, the birthplace of rum and all this. That was amazing. But the coolest thing is to see all these people hanging out that literally we've all met from around the world, and we all kind of come together. We're all hanging out, and it's just cool vibe. And that to me, that meant everything. That was that proud Papa moment, you know.
And and our Miami Rum Takeover was, again, the Miami Rum Renaissance Festival back in November in Miami is, well, okay, that was redundant, but that was, again, my first foray into a rum festival or rum event like that. And I had so much to learn. I at least was smart enough. I did an episode on that, was things I learned. And one of them was making sure I knew I was pacing myself after drinking all day. And that was unfortunately, I don't think I heeded my own advice during the takeover, you know, right? Because here we sat there and we were trying to drink, sample all sorts of, you know, was Grander and Privateer and Clarion, and I'm like, holy shit, this is a lot of drinking. And it was, even though there might have been small little, it's like, but there's just some really high octane. But where I was going to, that was really a cool event. I mean, I wish I had the opportunity to make it to the Rum Congress. That was really what I, you know, was hoping for. But I think the Miami Rum Takeover, that the guys, you know, here in the Florida Rum Society, you know, as I called it, picked up the ball and ran with it, it was great. Because you're right, I had a great time meeting a lot of folks. We all had, like, you know, again, we all kind of knew each other, and I still had this first time meeting a lot of the folks. I think you may have been the only one I hadn't met, maybe except for Jay. I had Jay on the podcast last year, so but it was just great hanging out, and the cocktail hours, and like Swizzle, right? That was a pretty cool night. Here we're all hanging out and you know, enjoying the same thing that we all like, and symphony and so forth. So some of us didn't make it all the way through the night. Some of us went raging earlier, but we won't get into names of who those were, right?
I think I was with you during that, and there was a Cuban restaurant involved, and it's yeah, I remember that. It was
sure, if you say so.
Hey, you know, and it's and I love what you just said about the, you know, we've seen each other on these virtual sessions and all this, and it's like you get to know each other. And then in fact, I'd love to tell this story. So there's a guy, Shane, over in Scotland. And he had founded the Rummelier. He found that a couple, 3 years ago. He found it online, and he went through the course. He's like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And he reached out to me and said, you know, hey, you know, love to have you come over to Scotland sometime. Well, then the pandemic hit, and I was like, okay. It really started hitting then. And I said, okay, you know, so we kept having these plans. So I finally, when I went over to the London Rum Fest, I said, you know, I'm going to go over a little early, go up to Scotland. And it was so odd that I had so many conversations with this person and some of this other folks from Scotland for us to sit down. We actually met at a tiki bar in Glasgow, and to actually we're actually doing a cheers where we're like, actually, like, wow, this is so cool.
This is actually in person.
Oh my gosh. This is like, you sure there's a video screen in here?
Well, that's like I asked you there when you joined on the camera. There was like, is that a Zoom backdrop? That's an awesome Zoom backdrop. No, that's actually your bar there. So hey Greg, actually, I think what you need to do is, that's something maybe you can sell this camera shot here as people's Zoom backgrounds, right? So, you know, there you go. And it's like, man, look at that bar.
What I'll just hop out of it. So get ready to do a screen save. Here we go, and feel free to use it for free. Okay, I hope you got it.
Yeah,
like people go, wow, everybody's got the same bar in their
right.
house. It's crazy.
Man, this is where the intimidating part happens, where people are like, damn, my collection is just a few bottles. How am I going to compete with wow, everybody, it's like, and of course you read all these different rum groups and people are just starting out or whatever, and they're comparing out, again, nobody's comparing in a bad way, but sometimes you can have a self like, God, this is very overwhelming, right? So, but anyway, so all right, so
it all started with one bottle, man. It all started with one bottle,
yeah.
and again, it's and what I love, and cool part, another cool part. I keep talking about Rum Community again, and I was talking about Tiki John. His collection was 1,300. We're not even really sure how many. He's got a vault that just goes very deep, and people like Matt Petrick. I mean, these amazing collections, and they are so open. What do you want to try? It's here you go, and that's as long as you appreciate it. I'm the same way, as long as you appreciate it and want to try. I mean, these are wide open. In fact, here you go. Anybody wants to come to Richmond, Virginia, you are more than welcome. Come here, visit, and let's have a rum adventure. This is one of my true pleasures in life, is to be able to share these things. So.
There you go. Yeah, no, and everyone I've met who I've have been over to their house or place or so forth have been great and very gracious and open. And for those that if you watch and listen to the podcast, you probably know some of those guests who I've visited already, and and again, the hospitality, and it's like, hey, try this, and it's like, I do have to drive, or unless I'm going to crash on your couch.
We are strong believers in Uber. So Uber got it, make sure it's on your app, and it has been utilized quite often. And actually, I'm very fortunate. I got to say, my wife puts up with all this mess. My wife, who you met, Miami, she really doesn't drink. In fact, I think you saw one of the very rare occasions that she actually had some cocktails. But typically, it's kind of nice. I do have a designated driver a lot of times, and my buddies go, "How in the world is she watching everybody drink all this rum?" And I think she gets a kick out of watching us. So sometimes, and actually, she's great too at controlling me. Talk about that liquor store thing. Sometimes I do get a little. Let's just say overbearing or a little too
exuberant.
Deep. I go granular a little more than I probably should in certain social environments.
Yeah.
And she is very good at the kick under the table of stop it.
Here, let me pull the leash. Okay, settle down, down, boy, down. Yeah.
They really do not want to hear about the ox-drawn carts in Haiti with the Clarins. They really don't want to hear that, honey. I know it's interesting to you, but
yeah. They've never heard of the word Esther before, okay? Unless it was our Aunt Esther.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, well, definitely, I know when I make my way somehow at some time up your way, I know that we've talked it, at the takeover. There's a obviously y'all see is an extensive rum bar there, as well as the studio. So I can't wait to come up, visit. We're going to jam, we're going to drink, and who knows, whatever else. So
we truly need to get together a rum jam band. So any other musicians on here, we got to figure this thing out. And again, we got all the music genres, whatever. Let's do a blend. There we go. Anybody plays any style. Here we go. We talk about blending rums, blending music. That's an awesome thing. Who knows? We see what we can come up with.
We definitely, yeah. So if you're listening, I know most of our listeners may be drummers, so we definitely have a lot of variety there and a lot of folks from all over and so forth. Yeah. So I think that we definitely, I got to add that to the many ideas now that we've got irons in the fire that I just. So all right, so Greg, so we were talking music here, and you kind of hinted a little bit, So how'd you start? And again, you mentioned you're a bass player. How'd you start, and when did it go back? And how'd you get into that music lifestyle?
Actually, I was very fortunate. I grew up around a musical family. My great-grandfather was a banjo player. My grandfather was a guitar player. My father was a guitar player. So it was always, Christmas time. We always played. I started very young in bluegrass, of all things, from my grandfather. My father was into the 50s music. He was a somewhat touring musician, he says. So that's where I really got my start in the late 70s, early 80s. That's when I started playing bass. Had like a lot of us, a lot of musicians, you can probably relate with this. I had the band director who was the life changer for me. He suggests, I think I was playing trumpet at the time, and he said, "Oh, you play guitar too?" I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "You know what? I'm going to give you a piece of advice. If you always want a gig, you need to learn bass." And he says, "I can tell you've got some feel for it." So he was Raymond Elliott. I heard he passed away a few years ago. A little sad about that, but he was a great mentor. He was the one that kind of got me on the path. Ended up going into pursuing it on through high school, playing a lot of bands. Said I was a music major at James Madison University, which is it's great to see a lot of the folks that I went to school with have done very well in the music business. Ended up, let's just say, leaving early from JMU because I did really well in the social skills and the and music, but ended up touring with some heavy metal bands in the mid 80s, which turned into a stint in LA. Our band had a little record deal there with A&M Records, and unfortunately, like a lot of folks, it went nowhere. Moved back to Virginia, really got into the music scene here, played every type of music you can probably imagine, and took a very long hiatus. And I'm very excited to say I am now back playing. Was offered to play in an 80s band, and I say, well, you know what? 80s was my gig back in the day. That was my high school days, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But let's say those late nights, the third set is a little bit different than it used to be. Now it's kind of like, how much longer is this show going to last?
Are we there yet?
Wow, the set list keeps growing and growing. My hands don't hurt. Why my hands hurt? They didn't used to hurt. And then the next day, as my wife, as I make the old man noises getting out of bed, she's going, "Oh my goodness, that sounds so sad." Yeah.
And then then you have a short-term memory, and then you're like, "Hey, let's ready to do it again." Right.
Oh yeah. The next day, I say, "Hey, we got a gig tonight. That'd be awesome."
Yeah. So who were some of the so what was the name of the band?
Which band?
The one you went out to LA with.
That band was a band called Rex, which was one of those that the thing I learned in the music business, timing is everything. Let's just say our genre of music, we just sort of missed the wave of that type of music. So, which again, that's there's a lot of musicians on here probably tell a very similar story. So,
right. So, and then who were some of the bands that you were on tour with?
Actually, believe it or not, and this is going to be a little bit of a curveball, the biggest band I ever was with, but not as a bass player, was Reba McEntire. I was actually one of her lighting guys, and I learned a lot about the music business from being on that, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And a lot of people kind of say, and honestly, I took the gig at the time because I had kind of learned how to do lighting. Just from if you're in a heavy metal band, in the 80s, you need a lot of lights. And so I kind of had to learn that business. And I found the creativity. There's so much creativity in that. So that's probably my biggest band that I toured with. So
that's pretty, heck, that's I'm sure. Yeah. That could be a whole separate podcast. Your stories of touring on the road as your own band. And then especially with Reba's whole thing there. So
fantastic lady, by the way. She was just I would have to say Reba was truly a class act, and still to this day, actually my old roommate still works with her. If you see monitors, my buddy Kaz is still there, and I love to come to town. I love to see him, and we kind of relive those old days. But class act. She is truly a fantastic lady.
Right. So, so we were just talking about the more recent time there. You were performing at a little event there, and what I saw that kind of struck interesting on the Facebook pictures was what kind of bass was that? Because that thing looked huge.
Oh, well, thanks. That's my baby. I'm like a lot of musicians. You've probably gone through a lot of different drums throughout the day. I went through tons and tons of basses and 25 years ago, and it'd be 25 years ago. Actually, Ken Smith basses. I had set in somewhere, and the guy had a Ken Smith bass, and it was just like, oh my gosh, where'd you get this bass? This is the most amazing bass. So I actually had that one made it Ken Smith out of Pennsylvania. If ever you look them up, just to me, some of the most amazing basses. And that one is a 6-string. It's called BMT 6 Elite. Flame walnut on it. Obviously, it's got maple, rosewood, all those in there as well. But it's that one that once you play it, man, it's that thing has made it through probably 15, 16, 1700 shows. Not even sure how many it's made it through. It's just I get sad when I'm not playing it. And and the reason I know 97 is it just celebrated last month its 25th birthday. I'm like, yeah.
Wow. Is that so? That's older than you. Oh, that's probably older than your kids, right?
Yes, it is older than the kids. So also, and I got to talk about so proud instruments. Probably with the Ken Smith bass, but I also have a 1953 Les Paul Gold Top that my father purchased for me in 1982. I've owned that since 1982, and it is one of my pride and joys. Lester has I've actually played it at some shows before, and people are like, oh my gosh, that thing should be behind glass. I'm like, no, it's sort of like a good rum. It should be out there.
That's right.
So I'm very proud of that. It's probably of my collectors.
So how many basses total?
Probably around 12, 15, somewhere around in there. I got the usual suspects, the P basses, the J basses, the Ricks, some weird ones that I've had, almost the Frankenstein ones that have been put together. The Ibanez series is oh my gosh, you can get me going. There's a bunch, and it is kind of cool every now and then to kind of break one of those out and kind of, oh, hey, I remember this one. This is pretty hard to use them for recording. I've got some electric upright basses and those. It's kind of cool to break those out every now and then, and give you it's kind of weird how sometimes to get some creativity going, get another guitar, another bass out sort of brings that out. Sometimes it's going to get you out of your rut a little bit. So. Yeah,
those uprights, definitely gives a different style, feel, tone, and especially when you at least especially when I see it. And so here's I'll one last music thing here is here's a bass music reference. So again, being a metal guy, and I don't know how big you've heard of them, but the band it's like a rockabilly band, but I guess there's a genre called psychobilly, and this band was called they're still out, Necromantics, and it's a 3-piece band, and they play a lot of this, like, again, psychobilly kind of esque, fast-paced music, sort of. And the lead singer is also the bass player, and he plays an upright bass that's in the shape of a coffin. So you got to look at it.
I've seen them. Yes. Now I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Yes, I've seen that. Yes. That was cool.
So there's a little, it's a little different, but it's an upright bass, and it's definitely something unique. And I had only learned about them because their drummer at the time, almost about 8-10 years ago, it came through West Palm here, and it was a female drummer, and she'd play double bass, and she'd be wearing high heels, and there's all these drum videos, and watching is like, kind of very impressive. She's probably like 4'11", a little tiny thing. And, but yeah, she's up there rocking those guys and just kind of keeping up. And it's like, all right, most people can't even play double bass in just regular shoes, let alone here's somebody playing in high heels. So, all right, Greg. So here we go. We're going to go through and get ready for our segment here. So, you ready for your rapid fire? Do you need another refresh in your cocktail?
I don't know. I need to pour some more rum in here to get a.
It's up to you. Okay. Again,
I've already got some more of the 1981 here.
There you go.
By the way, this stuff is a flavor bomb. Oh my gosh! Home's Keep, fantastic stuff. And in addition to a lot of other rums out there, I mean, it's this is fantastic stuff. So.
All right, so here we.
So now I'm ready. I'm prepared.
Okay, so I think you're prep, primed, and lubricated to kind of go through our rapid fire segment. Is what we call.
I'm a little nervous now. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
All right, so in 4 sips or less. All right, this is one that all the guests pretty much get. So this should be probably pretty easy. So in 4 sips.
Thanks for putting pressure on there. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. I think I already know the answer to it. I think you already kind of hinted on this already. So in 4 sips or less, neat or on ice.
Neat.
Okay, see, that
No
wasn't.
doubt.
Hey,
But a little caveat every now and then. I do like to add a little. I actually like to slowly maybe add a little water, maybe add a little bit of, but slowly move it up because it does change the flavor characteristic.
Mhm.
But that's part.
Okay.
So
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So here we go. So number 2. So in 4 sips or less, how much is too much that you wouldn't spend on a bottle of rum? So is there a dollar? Do you have a dollar amount that you would say, no, that is just too much?
I think if it starts going north of $1,000, I think that's when I start getting. Well, my wife puts. That should be the caveat on it. My wife goes, no, seriously. Now, I have had, and again, I have to expand upon everything. You've learned that at this point, right? And I got to tell this story. We were on a trip to the Cayman Islands, and I went to the hotel. And how many of you do this? The first thing you do when you go and you see the hotel bar, you pass check-in. I got to go see what they got in the bar. And I happened to see on the top of there was a Papa Andres, which I happen to know. The Papa Andres, around the Brugal family, it runs about $2,500 a bottle. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. Now, I know, again, my wife would say, no way in the world could you ever, $2,500 bottle, you're not doing that. But I did do a pour, and the pour was like $120, and I think worth every penny for the experience. And I got to be in Rummelier mode, explain to the bartender and the other folks there about it. And I ended up selling another pour because somebody sitting in the bar says, that's the coolest thing. I'm on vacation. What the heck? Let me try some too.
So you should have definitely got some of that tip from that bartender, right? So it's like, do you know what you have here? Do you know what's in this?
This is amazing stuff. So
yeah. All right. So here we go. All right, so we got to limit with a little caveat to it. All right, I'm sure the music equipment is probably in the same boat too. So, all right. So number 3. All right. So we're gonna switch it up here a little bit. Okay. So I'm gonna give you some names here. And then let's see what we're the battle royale here. Okay, Jaco or Geddy Lee?
Oh, dude, that is so tough. Oh my gosh, totally different styles.
Give me a name.
Now, I'm a huge Rush fan. I'm going to go with Geddy because I love Jaco. Love you, Jaco. I love it, but Geddy was such an influence on me. And if you hear me play, you'll hear that influence coming out.
All right. Well, we're not over yet. All right. Geddy Lee or Vic Wooten?
Okay, so I've met Victor Wooten on quite a few occasions. He is a Virginia guy.
Uh-oh.
Technically, Victor Wooten, man. Dude, he is insane. And he came up with some really, I think he changed a lot of the bass thinking of it becoming a true solo instrument. So I'm going to go with Victor Wooten.
Cool. All right. And wait.
Nice guy, by the way. Victor Wooten's one of the nicest guys, period.
But wait, there's more.
Oh,
Vic Wooten or Paul McCartney?
I'm a huge Beatles fan. I'm a huge McCartney fan. And so I'm going to go totally, we're going to take technique out of there by the way. Paul McCartney to me, fantastic technique, but game changer from taking it to where, to me, one of the innovators and taking it from being just a typical, the bass being behind the scenes to truly writing amazing, artistic, melodic bass lines. Got to go with Sir Paul.
All right. Wow. That was, we went from Jaco to Geddy to Vic. So yeah, that's a
toughie, by the way. That was a very toughie.
And that's why these questions are never included in the questionnaire, in pre-show questionnaire, because at least I want to have some element of, except for the very first question is always asked. That's become a staple for all the rummers, and so these are always tailored to a little bit of each individual person. So they're never always the same for most of the time. And again, since this is more of the rum side of the podcast with a little side of music. All right, so all right, so the last one here. All right, so you can have whatever all the rum you want in the world and so forth. But what is the one song you could have if you were deserted on an island? Only one.
Oh, this is going to be a little bit out there. I've always kind of ranked my top 10. Number one, believe it or not, which I think is one of the most well-written songs, and it's kind of a little bit of a different genre here, is Fantasy by Earth, Wind and Fire. Have you had anybody answer that one before?
And they have not. Actually, I think that's actually the first time I may have asked that question. That one may have to actually stick.
That's a cool one. By the way, I almost said Delamitri since I saw them 2 nights ago, and I'm a huge Delamitri fan now. So basically, that's been my kids and family are like, "Can we stop listening to Delamitri?" Like, no, Justin Currie. In fact, okay, Delamitri. Quick, I got to say this. I took my brother to the Delamitri show. It didn't know a lot. In fact, a lot of folks they know a couple of the hits.
Right.
I asked my brother, "What did you think?" And he said, "You know what? When I go to heaven, and if God gives me an opportunity to pick a voice that I can have, I'm picking Justin Currie of Delamitri. So if you truly want to hear a true vocalist, okay, we're going to do vocals and rums here. Yeah. My gosh, just wow.
All right. So there.
Plus a bass player too, by the way. Just
So
you love my tangents, don't you?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, there's a little bit. People always say, how is this supposed to be in 4 sips or less, and they're like, oh, that means you got to like take 4 sips before you get to the final answer and the thing and so forth. But it's always supposed to be thought provoking to kind of, as you said, just kind of make you stumble or not stumble, but you kind of really think hard. Some, good question there. So, all right, Greg. So thanks for being a true player here. And again, you are now made it through the rapid fire segment there. You are now an alum there for the podcast. So we'll get that out to you there as well. And I know for those, so as I know we're got to wrap things up here because we got a little other thing coming up here. But so let's get the shameless plugs out of the way. What does everybody got to check out? What are you pitching? What are you selling? What do you got?
Go to RoyalRumSociety.com or if Rummelier, and there will be links to Rummelier there. If you're wondering how do you spell Rummelier, just RUM like Sommelier and Rummelier.com. Also, you can find us on Facebook. We are not we don't post quite as much as the Florida Rum Society, which I love going on the Florida Rum Society and some of the other rum sites as well. But there you go, Rummelier.com or RoyalRumSociety.com. All
right. So check that out. Again, if you want to learn more about being Rummelier and you really want to take your rum enthusiasm up to that next level, definitely check out the websites. And again, you learn a lot. And something else I'll talk to you offline about. I'm just thinking there about, some of the, for people to learn more about, and it's about, even though this product is made from, cane and sugar and so forth, that there's a certain aspect to kind of get the stigma that people think about it. And I know there's a whole big discussion about different rums, and what rum means and so on and so forth. So we'll kind of leave it at that, but because we'll talk a little bit offline about that. But
very cool.
Yep. So everybody check out the websites there. Greg had mentioned there. We'll put it in the show notes for your listeners. Also, make sure you give a rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Those ratings and the reviews actually do mean a whole lot to people that are checking it out and see if it's a podcast of interest, advertisers, etc. And definitely check out our affiliate sponsor there, Club Tiki there. They're a cocktail in a can. It's a rum-based seltzer, a pina colada in a blue Hawaii there, so 7.5%. So you go to their website, order 2 4-packs or more, you get free shipping and 5% off. And then if you use our promo code, we get a little bit from that. So again, that helps support what we're trying to do here. And again, trying to keep improving the show and so forth. So and check out all the other social media, YouTube. This will be on YouTube as well, too, if you're listening to this. So check out all the social medias. You see I'm active over there on Instagram a lot, posting a lot of stuff on the Drums and Rums podcast page, as well as my new moniker. I have a new persona that I've created called the Rumfluencer. So I'm sure a lot of people were like saying, you don't know shit. But you know what? Hey, you got to run with it and just make it fun and try to make it rum fun for everybody. So all right, so that's all we've got for the podcast, everybody. We will check out and we'll wrap this show up. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Greg, thank you for joining me today.
Cheers.
Cheers, yes, cheers. Yep, cheers. So until next time. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a great night.